Even men at the top of their game find themselves wanting more from life. Whether it's more meaning, unshakable confidence, a bigger impact, more money, deeper love, a hotter sex life, or a powerful legacy. Find out how good your life can be on this episode of Man Alive. Also, as I've supported men in their love and work lives for 15 years now, many men have asked me for the right words to say to be more attractive, desirable, and more of a leader. And I've found it's not so simple as giving scripts or lines. Because at the root of a connected and affectionate relationship and being more effective and inspiring at work is your ability to influence others. But most often, influence is not gained or lost with words. It's from what I call the invisible factors. So I created a quick guide for you called 3 Ways Men Lose Influence at Work and with Women, so you can understand how these invisible factors work and what has women and colleagues both more inspired to say yes. I think you're also going to be surprised to find out the moment when your influence actually begins. So grab the guide for free at shanajamescoaching.com/3ways. That's shanajamescoaching.com/3 and the word ways, WAYS. Or you can text ALIVE to 44144. That's the word ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144. I hope you enjoy the guide and this episode. Hello and welcome to this episode of Man Alive. I'm your host, Shana James. I am really excited to be here today, and we are going to cover a daunting topic. And the topic is that we're going to talk about your relationship with your mom. And, you know, it's funny. This is one topic that I think most of us, and same with women with our dads, it's not something that feels really exciting to look into, right? It's something that is can often be really, really painful. But what I have found and what our guest has found that is if you haven't really done the work to unearth the dynamics that happen with your mom, that it has a huge impact on your current relationship. So Christopher, thank you so much for being here and for helping talk about this daunting topic.
You know, it's absolutely huge. And most of the time we just proceed through life one day at a time and don't take a step back to get a big picture, kind of bird's eye view on our life. And then we fail in that to have chances to notice how we are a product of our parenting.
Yeah.
And how in some ways perhaps we have not yet declared our independence and become our own sovereign being.
Yes. And, you know, I can see, right, in so many of the arguments I've had in my past and, you know, and with my relationship that ended in divorce, I could really see how the big ones and the big crunchy spots, right, they weren't really a reaction to my ex-husband. They were so much more built in my reaction to my dad and to my parents and, you know, all of that. So we're going to dive into that. I want to give you a quick introduction because it's so easy to just start, but I want people to know who you are. So
sure.
Christopher-Lovestone is a sex educator and relationship consultant who survived 6 divorces in his childhood and now teaches men how to succeed in their relationship through communication and integrity. His techniques have yielded him a wildly successful 15-year marriage that gets hotter every day. And he's published his teachings in his new book called Conscious Cock, The Empowered Sexuality Manual for Men. He has been called the Einstein of relationships and has been endorsed by many of the top male sex educators in the world. And I would just want to thank you for teaching about communication and integrity, right? There's a lot of teaching out there on communication and it's not always paired with integrity. So, you know, when I work with men, I'm often like, okay, I'm teaching you some superpowers, but you have to promise that you're going to use these for good, right? You have to use them with integrity. So thank you for being a man who teaches that.
You named it. You know, knowledge is power, right? And so many cultures throughout history have not taught knowledge to younger generations until they deemed that younger generation was able to wield it with integrity.
Right.
You know, and if you don't, you just get the knowledge, you know, you can cause so much harm, not just to yourself, but to everyone around you.
Yeah.
So, you know, it really, the foundation of all of my work is a modern understanding of boundaries and consent as a self-empowerment practice.
Boundaries and consent as a self-empowerment practice.
Yes, exactly. For the person that I'm talking to, if I'm teaching you about boundaries and consent, I'm using boundaries and consent to help you get power in your life. And this is usually revolutionary work for anybody that hears it, because they normally think, oh, boundaries and consent. That what you're talking about is, somebody who's on a date and maybe rape or sexual abuse or molestation or something like that. And I'm like, no, I'm not talking about it from that perspective at all. I'm talking about being able to get the words out of your mouth when your belly is tight and your heart is pounding and you feel like you should say something, but you feel shut down and unable to do it.
And this could be in a relationship or when you're single.
In all aspects of life.
Yeah. Great.
Absolutely.
So, okay. So boundaries and consent. And as maybe we can just tie that into like, in my experience working with men who have had moms who on either end of the spectrum, right? Either were not very attentive or loving or were more suffocating, that impacts our ability to actually speak our truth and say what we need or have needs or all of that. So I'm curious, how that comes in your work with men, the boundaries, consent, and then tying it back into mom.
Okay. I think the teaching tool that I find that most people can really grasp and easily relate to, which is the gateway to this conversation, is do you ever feel like you really try to take care of everybody around you? You try to not make them feel bad. You care for their feelings. You don't want to disappoint them. You stick with your word till the bitter end because you gave your word, even though maybe something changed inside of you and you don't want to do it. And in all of this, what we're doing is we're caretaking and we're people pleasing. Everybody kind of understands intuitively this concept of wanting people to like them, wanting to be likable, wanting to be loved, because we all want love and appreciation, and we're brought up as children. Most people are brought up as children to not say no to their parents, to not make waves, go with the flow, be nice, and inherent in that is this programming of not speaking up for what you know is true inside of you.
Right.
And so many of us carry that forward into adulthood, into our jobs, into our personal relationships, like friend circles, and then also any romantic or sexual relationships that we have. And then we end up living these lives of inauthenticity, playing a role that we never really wanted to sign up for, the dutiful husband, the provider, right? The dutiful son.
Which is so exhausting. And then men come to me, feel either divorced or still in a relationship, feeling alone, right? It's like I was in a romantic relationship, but I just felt so alone and unseen and unknown.
Totally hidden.
Yeah.
And then also hidden from himself and hiding himself from his partner. Not because he wants to hide himself, but just because he's doing his best to please everyone around him the way he was trained to do, the way he thinks a good man should. That people-pleasing thing is a poison to our own authenticity. And another way to say that is it's a poison to our own personal evolution. So many people stop growing when they get out of the house.
Yes.
When they reach their 20s, they stop evolving. And then you end up having 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds that are still kind of the same emotional state that they were when they were a teenager.
In their teens and 20s,
Right? So it's a much better thing to continually evolve through your life and be an 80, 90-year-old eventually if you can get there. It is completely inverting yourself and trying on new aspects of yourself and reversing and exploring and continuing to be engaged and dynamic with life.
Yeah, and really willing.
Right?
Yeah, willing to look at the hard things. And I'm curious what your relationship with your mother, we've talked about this a little bit, but we've talked about where you learned to lie or say yes to your mom. Can you tell us a little bit about that dynamic?
Yeah, sure. So my mother would say that she was a single mother. That's what she would call herself. Although she was always in a relationship my entire childhood. And in that kind of single parenting mindset, she had to be the mother, she had to be the father, she had to be the provider, she had to be the caregiver, all at the same time. And she was very, very tightly wound and strung and stressed out and hurt from all the traumas in her life and the desperation of trying to make ends meet. It was a very hard life for her, and she did her best. And her grip was really tight. And in that, I learned to be her support, be her caretaker, be her caregiver, be giving, care for her feelings, do everything I can to support her.
I can even hear like how your voice just changed in that moment, right? It was like, oh, I just pulled myself up into being this adult when I was really a kid. And
then from that, as I got to maturity, sexual maturity, and started kind of having my own personality really grow inside my heart and in my mind, that came kind of like, two male sheep, two male goats, rams, butting heads together, right? We kind of started to clash because I wanted to differentiate. I was different. I wanted control over my life, but she, to me, was very controlling and domineering. It was her way or no other way.
Yeah.
And I learned that if I was honest about what was going on for me, it would cause, a day's worth of nasty feelings and resentment, and like I would have to dig my way out of this horrible hole.
So if you were honest, it did not go well.
Right. The emotional processing cost for that was too big to be manageable. And I learned that if I just yesed her, and I say yes, I mean air quotes, yes, I just say yes to her, whatever she wants, and nod, go along with it, and let her think that I'm totally going along with her, then it was just like
let her think you're going along with her, and then under the surface or behind her back or whatever, you're just going to do whatever you're going to do.
So then she didn't know who I was.
Yes.
Because I wasn't telling her, because because she couldn't hear my differentiation without like responding with pain, with rejection, with hard feelings, with escalated voice, with tears, whatever it might have been. So I learned to stuff myself and diminish myself. And then I became split. I had my reality, and then I had my public life with her.
Yeah. And I was just thinking how, I have worked with men before who say to me, well, I don't think my wife can handle this. And I'm like, well, if you don't try and if you don't know, right, you don't get to be free. And we grow up really thinking, like you said, it's like we grow up, and some people still are emotionally, in their 20s, even though they're in their 40s to 90s. But we also we see people that way because we see them like we saw our past and our parents. And so if we don't even try, or we don't give people credit that, we're not the kids we once were, right, then again, we just start creating all these patterns where we're alone and isolated and unknown and hidden, like you said.
There's a real easy signal that anybody can use to alert awareness in themselves that maybe they're playing out a pattern that they haven't examined with their parent. And that pattern is, you're just like my mom. You're just like my dad. If you ever hear yourself say that or hear someone else say that, oh, hey, okay, there's a blind spot there.
Yes.
Let's shine some light on that and look at that. Because are they really just like your mom or just like your dad? Or are they just triggering or uncovering something inside of yourself that used to be imprinted by your parents?
I love that.
It's a real easy flag to notice if you just have the awareness. Oh, if you ever hear anybody say you're just like my mom, you're like, oh, you've got unexamined issues that are really keeping you back.
Yeah. Right. And really, I mean, this is going even farther into it, where if we can start actually looking at, well, how is this upset related to, my mom or my dad or my caretaker? How actually just assuming that there's something there. I think that's been really powerful and useful, but maybe jumping ahead of the game. So part of what I want to know from you, right, is, okay, so you develop this pattern, you learn to lie or just to say yes in air quotes, and then go and do what you're going to do anyway. And so I want to hear a little bit about your journey of, how did you start turning back toward your truth, or being in a relationship with others with your truth?
It was a deep investigation for me personally, that I had a desire in myself to figure out what's my calling in this life. What's my reason to be. And for me, I felt like I had to clarify for myself, why am I here? I feel like there's something I need to do. You want to call it fate? You want to call it grace? You want to call it destiny? Do you want to call it a mission or raison d'etre? Whatever it might be, but like I needed to know for myself, what's my purpose here? I need to have a purpose. I need to feel that, and then I can live for my purpose. Anyway, that questioning took me decades. It was not easy. It was arduous for me. Anyway, so I was on my own personal journey of uncovering what's my calling in life. And in that, I started learning about authenticity and shifted away from this paradigm that I'd been operating in on autopilot of making things easier by guessing and lying.
Yeah.
And I was in a relationship in my late 20s that went sour, and I got my heart broken, and it was the best thing that had ever happened to me for me to get my heart broken.
Yeah.
And I had lied in my relationship, and I had, a breakthrough, because sometimes change happens really quickly, all in a moment, in an accident or with the death of a friend. In a moment, everything can shift.
Yeah.
And in that heartbreak, everything shifted for me. And I said, I'm not going to do this lying thing anymore. I want to be real. I want people to know who I am. And then I can just relax, and I can put down having to remember all the lies that I told. Because if you tell lies, there's a backpack you have to carry around.
There's a log,
remembering
right?
everything.
Hold that up. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then I said, I'm never going to do that again. I'm never going to lie again to anybody. I'm just going to start being real. I'm tired of that whole other thing.
That's
that old paradigm.
Admirable.
It's a gift to myself.
Mm-hmm. Which is actually beautiful, right? To see that, that it's a gift to yourself, not only to others, but to yourself.
No, to me, because now that I live a life of integrity and I don't lie, I just get to relax.
Yes.
If I make a mistake, it's an honest mistake.
Yeah.
I'm never manipulating or trying to craft a situation by lying or anything anymore. So it's so much easier for me. Anyway, so at that stage in my life, I then began to have more courage with my mother. Mm-hmm. And I began to be honest with her. And that didn't go so well. Okay. It was empowering for me to find my courage and my strength to be honest as a man, no longer a child, a man on my own outside of the home. It was really powerful for me to find that sense of power in myself, that I could be honest with her.
Yeah.
But the reality was that it was still really hard. At least I wasn't living under her roof, right? At least she wasn't providing for me and dominating.
When you say hard, meaning in the relationship dynamic between the two of you?
Yeah. It wasn't easier.
Right.
But I was more powerful.
Yes, which is great to not expect that, it's, especially with these past relationships with mom or parents, it doesn't necessarily make it easier. But what it does seem to do, right, is set us up for actually the potential to have a successful relationship in our current life or in our current romantic life, right?
Right. So, it took me claiming my power from a place of being, I'll say, oppressed. Yeah. In that parent-childhood dynamic, I felt very oppressed. And the only way I could get out of that oppression was to lie and escape by having two lives, a split life, one where I lied and one where I knew who I really was. So it never got easier, but I have been more able to handle it and make it mean less about me.
Yeah.
That claiming my love for myself, my love of my own freedom, now that I've got it. I love being an adult. I used to remember as a child how much I wanted freedom, how much I wanted to control my own life, go do the things that I wanted to do, because I felt like I was really dominated by somebody who would just keep me doing what she wanted me to do.
Yeah.
And now that I'm an adult, so often I just have this memory. And I go, oh my God, I love being an adult. I get to do what I want to do, go where I want to go, be how I want to be. Isn't that joyous? Isn't that wonderful?
God, hearing it that way, it sounds really joyous.
Yeah,
and it just reminds me too of how when we're young, it's kind of either or. Someone has to be wrong. There's just a way of our consciousness at that age. So now it sounds like, okay, you've grown up in this way, and you realize, you don't have to be wrong, and she doesn't have to be wrong, and you get to be who you are, and she can be who she is. And I'm curious what the impact was, even though it wasn't easier on that relationship, what the impact was then on your other relationships.
Well, let's see. There's a key ingredient, if you're asking me about my relationship with my mother, which is that as I grew into my power by practicing standing up and being honest, bit by bit, it started with, no, I don't want the mashed potato yams at Thanksgiving dinner. I started small with something like, no, Mom, I don't want that. Don't put that on my plate. I don't want it. It's, something bite-sized piece. But I grew it, year by year. And to the point where eventually I identified a pattern that was in her relationship with me and her relationship with the world. And I called her on it. I said, I'm not going to honor that pattern anymore. This needs to change. So here I am, not only standing up for myself and being honest, but I'm also got to a place of power where I said, I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to draw a boundary here.
I'm going to draw a boundary.
This boundary, this behavior is no longer acceptable to me.
Yeah.
And that was in my early 30s. It took me that many years to draw the first boundary I ever drew with my mother, because I felt like she was so powerful.
Yeah.
And I had to get my power up to a place where I could actually do that. And there, it's a false expectation to think that we can have things the way that we want to have them. Like, to think that everything is going to turn out the way we want them to turn out is erroneous.
Yeah.
The world is complex. Things are ever changing. They involve other people, etc. As much as I'd like things to turn out the way I want them to, and I can do everything I can to craft and feed the situation and cultivate it, providence moves, grace happens, things shift, and the reality is you don't know what you're going to get.
Right.
And I drew that line, and it cost me my relationship with my mother.
It did.
Completely cost me.
Wow.
So it's been a difficult path, and it's been rewarding. I have learned to stand on my own 2 feet. And now I am a full, mature human being, and I get to role model that for my son and be that person to my partner, my love. Yeah. And that is quite a gift. But I had to differentiate. I had to draw a boundary.
Yes.
And, God, it was costly. And I wish that would be different.
Yeah,
but
that is a big cost.
But I know how important it was to me that it took me 30 some odd years to draw that line.
Right. And it's a huge cost to lose your relationship with your mom. And that's not going to happen for everyone. I know other men who've started saying things and their mom steps up and is like, wow, I didn't see that, or there's willingness. Right. But either way, right, you're the one you live with on a daily basis, and you're the one you're bringing into your current relationships. And so, to be able to set boundaries is such an important thing, or to be able to say no when you don't like something. I mean, so many men I've worked with, there is that sense of like, well, I'm supposed to say yes, even though I'm supposed to be the one who, is the almighty or the powerful or the rock that everybody leans on. But that involves me just saying yes all the time and sucking it up. And I mean, that just kills men.
Oh God, it totally does. A real easy metaphor is being a doormat, getting walked on, and the other end of the spectrum, you could say, is being a jerk.
Yep.
And what is the path of integrity? What is the path of being true to yourself and showing your true self to others? That's the midway, where you're not a doormat and you're not a jerk. You find the way to be honest about yourself, not sell yourself short. Don't be a prostitute, selling yourself for other people's approval.
Yes. I really love that you just brought the middle way, right? That you don't have to set a boundary by being an asshole. You can set a boundary with love and clarity.
With love. Yep. Yeah. And the empowered way, the most empowered way that I've seen to set a boundary is where you're not doing it because the other person's triggering you and you're in panic. And you're not doing it because you want to shut the other person down and self-protect. But that what you're doing is you're doing it because it's the best thing for you and it's the best thing for the other person. That is like really the superior way to do it.
That is
you're doing it out of love for everyone, because you see so clearly, because you've done your homework.
Yes.
You've gone through the compost and mined it, and you found the nugget, and you figured it out, and you know how to communicate it clearly, and you can do it, and then stand in your confidence.
And I'm curious about this, because I imagine there's a distinction when you see that it's best for you, but it may not be best for the other person. Though I will say, right, when there are often times, especially for men who are used to being nice guys, or being walked on, that actually what's best for you will be best for everyone. But how do you support men to work with boundaries when they can see, well, this is really good for me, but I don't know if it's going to be good for other people or if other people are going to like it?
Hmm. There's something that comes up as you say it that way that makes me think about this, what I experience as a reality, that when we caretake other people and don't state our truth and stand up for ourselves with love for the other person also, and find the way that's best for everybody else, that what we end up doing is fostering their codependence on us and
Mm-hmm.
fostering enmeshment. Yeah, by trying to diminish ourselves because maybe we're not so courageous to find the solution that's best for everyone. By diminishing ourselves, we're training them, we're teaching them that they can get those needs met from us, rather than giving them the gift of standing up for themselves as a true adult in their own lives and taking care of their own needs. To me, that's a bigger gift, to give someone full weight of their own lives, their own life to take care of. Let them handle it. Stop making them dependent on you diminishing yourself in some way. To me, that's the kinder gift.
Yes. So it
Because
takes kind of looking at, at a broader or more meta view of, right, in this moment, it may be painful for someone, but when we're really looking at the whole picture of being mature human beings and actually being, free and able to connect and be intimate and all of that, there's this huge gift that you're actually giving then.
You said it very well. Absolutely. It is a huge gift to yourself and to everyone around you, even though it might be painful, even though it might cost you the relationship. Ultimately, I think it's the kindest thing that you can do.
Yeah.
They
Right.
say,
So
show your
many
cards and
times.
let the chips. I apologize for speaking over you. Hold on,
No,
let
it's
me just
okay.
say this one thing. This metaphor that's really common is to show your cards and let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah.
But that is ultimately the kindest thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, what were you going to say?
No, I got really excited because I was thinking of how many times I've heard both men and women, or, any gender, people of any gender, say like, well, I didn't say it because I didn't want to hurt him or I didn't want to hurt her,
Right.
And then I'm like, wait, but now you're 6 months down the road and you knew you didn't want to be in this relationship this whole time. Like, how do you think that feels, for someone to find out you weren't really in it with me all this time I thought you were. And so, right, we can think these little hurts. We need to avoid these little hurts and then create even bigger ones.
Right. That makes me think of this concept that I've really been getting a lot of mileage out of lately, both for myself and as I work with other people, of calling it straight.
Yeah.
And asking the question, is this a good idea? And looking at it with a long time frame, a long lens into the future. Like if I'm doing this now and I look at how this is going to play out in the future, is that a really good idea for the other person? Is that a really good idea for me? If you know a Venn diagram where there's two circles and they overlap, and there's some part of the two circles that are shared ground, common ground, and overlap. The question being, is there an overlap between what this person wants and what I want, where in that overlap, we both are good?
Yeah.
Like we're both fulfilled and being inspired and being supported and being authentic and stuff like that. Is there an overlap? Is there a place where it is a good idea? Or is this not a good idea? And if I make the hard choice now, am I going to save myself and the other person and possibly bystanders a whole lot of headache and heartache in the future? Yeah. The ability to make a hard decision now can save so much headache and heartache in the future. And to me, that's the kinder thing to do.
Yeah. And I really appreciate where this comes back to integrity, right? And expanding integrity to include, like, how can, kind of the Buddhist concept, right? How can I, even beyond how can I do no harm, but how can I do my best to make this good for everyone involved? But that doesn't mean, right, the trap then, it doesn't mean doing that thing where you let yourself be walked all over or you make your needs less important.
It really helps to have a good sense of humor, which is also a Buddhist concept. A good sense of humor, your ability to loosen your grip, take things lightly, take yourself more lightly, and laugh at yourself while being real and honest. Laugh even at the pain of it, right? To how willing are we ultimately to lighten up?
Yeah.
Or how attached are we to our the mileage we get out of our view in the world, maybe
Mm-hmm.
making ourselves look like a victim or making ourselves look like the champion provider or something. How much mileage do we get out of our view of ourselves? And how
Yeah.
much are we willing to really actually lighten up
Yeah. Oh, I love
into the
it.
mystery, you could say.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Right. The mystery becomes more apparent when we're not holding on so tightly. But I think it's hard for us to trust that sometimes, to trust that there's going to be something, right? If we let go or if we say no, and I'm just, even speaking from my own personal experience, even as a woman, it's like that I identify a lot with those nice guy or nice girl tendencies. And I had a client actually write to me yesterday and say, wow, but who would I be then, right? Who would I be if I wasn't choosing women, who I saw that they had problems so I could actually feel valuable or worthwhile, and to be willing to question who would I be then if we weren't doing all these things, if we weren't doing the patterns we created when we were young, and able to look at that mystery. I mean, it's profound and also can be terrifying.
This makes me think of something that is so epidemic in our world, which is part of what I work to address, is that so many men are isolated.
Yeah.
So many men are alone in their relationship, in their family, in their home. They just feel so isolated and alienated.
Yeah.
For example, a lot of women will say, my partner, my husband, my boyfriend doesn't have any male friends.
Mm-hmm.
And that puts a lot of load on the relationship between the two of them that maybe she doesn't want to deal with. And anyway, so this isolation of men not having a group of other good men to lean on, to share their truth with, the reality of what they're thinking about and actually feeling.
Yes.
A lot of what I do is men's circles, both in person and virtually online through Zoom, where we get to meet, whatever the schedule is, once a week, for example, and get to go deep with each other in a safe space where everybody is on a level playing field. There's no guru, there's no disciple, there's no teacher, there's no student, there's no boss, there's no employee, there's no power differential. We're all on equal on equal ground. And in that, we give each other a support structure and an accountability process, that structure of meeting every week. Then when something happens or you have a feeling or a reaction or a fight or something like that, you're thinking, oh, I'm going to bring this to the call next week.
Yes.
I'm going to bring this to the men's circle. Maybe you have a success and you're like, oh my God, I did so good today. I didn't yell, or whatever your success might be. Then you get to bring that win to your support friends, the guys, and then they get to share your win with you. Mm-hmm. That gives you a sense of solidarity. So without having a support structure, and a structure that creates accountability and gives you support and encouragement and solidarity and sense of community with other good men, it's so hard to make massive positive changes in your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know. I did it myself. It took me 20 years doing it alone. I'm like, oh my God, this sucks. Let's change that. Let's get men together, give them a common vocabulary and a structure that they can use to support each other. And then the most amazing things happen.
Yes. So important. Well, all right. I feel like, as often at the end of these podcasts, we could keep going for hours or days, but
right.
To keep this digestible, what's the last thing you want to leave men with around, healing relationship with mom, or being aware of their relationship with their mom and how it impacts their current life?
Most men that I know will never go to a boundaries and consent workshop. They just categorically put it in a certain column in a spreadsheet in their mind or their heart where they say, that's not going to help me. As if they know what it's about before they have actually even gone and learned it. This concept that, I know everything that I need to know. Putting that kind of false pride aside and saying, you don't know everything that you need to know. Go learn something new. Add a new tool to your toolkit. Going to a boundaries and consent workshop can be completely life-changing for your sense of power in your own life. Your ability to control your own interactions with other people so that you give them accurate information about who you are and what's going on inside of you. Yes, with your mother, with your parents. I mean, it can be really hard with the power differential inherent in a parent-child relationship even when the child might be 50 years old and the parent might be 70 or 80.
Mm-hmm.
It can be really hard. But if you don't have a foundation of giving yourself permission to have your own opinion and say yes when you want to say yes and say no when you want to say no, and give yourself permission to change your mind and not have to stick it to the bitter end because you gave your word.
Yeah.
If you have that foundation, you actually have tools that can help you succeed. Without those tools, it's kind of like trying to make a mansion out of Stone Age tools.
Right. Yes.
Good luck. You're not going to be able to do it. With Stone Age tools, you're only ever going to create something that's really rough cut.
Yes.
If you want something beautiful, you got to have fine tools, master craftsmanship tools. So adding a tool to your toolkit, going to a boundaries and consent workshop, or downloading it. I have a free one on my website, conscioustalk.com. You can go to the download section and download it. Listen to it in your cell phone and a headset while you're commuting.
Yes.
And get that powerful infusion in your life.
Awesome.
It pays dividends for the rest of your life, and it's totally free. You just have to do the work, and it only takes an hour or so.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. And the link is in the show notes as well. And so, just click on it, listen to Christopher's teaching. You bring I can feel the strength and the wisdom and the love that you bring. And I'm appreciating that they're all together. So thank you for being, someone who's taken your struggles and actually turned them into ways to really support men.
Shana, thank you for giving the platform for so many people to share their gifts. What you're doing is you're facilitating the growth of these gifts in a leveraged, quasi-exponential rate in the world. You're really touching the world by doing the work that you're doing. Thank you for empowering people like myself to share our gifts to everybody that follows you and respects you, because, together we rise.
Yes.
Trying to be in the vacuum is so hard.
Yes.
Working smarter rather than harder, it just is better all around. So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be here with you today.
Thank you. I'm so glad you joined us for today's episode of Man Alive. I hope it gives you a sense of what's possible and how good your life can be. If you like what you heard, I'd be so grateful for you to subscribe to Man Alive and write a quick review that helps men like you find us. And again, head over to shanajamescoaching.com/manalive to get outtakes, videos, and raw footage I only share there. These are some of the most interesting parts of these expert conversations. You can also grab your copy of The Unknown Power to accelerate your career and solidify your confidence with women, because the two are related, and I know you don't have to settle for one or the other. Join us each week for a new episode of Man Alive.